Hello, Emmanuel.
Hello, Daphné.
And hello, Brendan.
Hello, Daphne.
Thanks for having me. We're sitting here in the HQ of Sanofi's HQ in Paris. Brendan, you've come all the way from Dublin to meet us this morning, so thank you. You are Sanofi's Executive Vice President for Manufacturing and Supply, which means that you manage an international network of supply, of distribution and production sites. In short, you're responsible for making sure that the right vaccine gets to the right person in the right amounts at the right time, everywhere around the world,
right
basically.
Quality.
Yeah, and the right quality as well, of course. Emmanuel, you live in Paris, but thanks for making the trip as well. You are Sanofi's Chief Digital Officer, which means that you lead and strategize on everything tech, AI, data, digital for the company. And today, as I said, we're sitting in Sanofi's office in Paris to talk about AI. And I think when we think about AI, we often think about AI for drug discovery. And as I said, it's quite, tangible and visible how that might change our societies and improve our lives. But what Sanofi, what you're about to launch and manage is Sanofi's latest digital accelerator, which is dedicated to finding AI solutions for a completely different side of operations, and that's manufacturing and supply. I'll let us talk us through what the accelerators are, how they work, what the objectives are. But I think for a little bit of scene setting, it would be useful to know kind of the scale of the problem, what kind of beast we're attacking when we're talking about manufacturing and supply at Sanofi, at a company like Sanofi, the size of Sanofi. Could you just give us a scale of, an idea of the scale of the challenge when we talk about manufacturing and supply at Sanofi?
Sure. So manufacturing supply in Sanofi represents almost 40 sites around the world, 30,000 people that are working incredibly hard every day to manufacture and supply the medicines and the vaccines that our patients depend on. So it's a broad network with some sites that go back over 100 years old to some sites that are brand new and very much focused on the tech of the future. We want to be, and we're modernizing our manufacturing supply function. We want to be the most trusted, the most reliable, the most capable, the most efficient manufacturing supply network in the biopharma industry. And secondly, we want to be the agent that can help to bring all of the new products and the innovation that's coming from our R&D labs and turn that into the reality of doses and treatments that patients will benefit from. And so we have a plan to launch more than 40 products by 2030, so in the next 5 years.
So our philosophy at Sanofi has been, we'd love to be able to be the leading biopharma that adopts AI at scale. And most people focus on the AI word, I focus on the scale word. Because scale is what is really difficult. When you spend a bit of time in Brendan's world, you get humbled by the complexity of it. Because what he mentioned is vaccines manufacturing, but not every vaccines manufacturing is the same. He mentioned biologics, they're complicated to make, there's solids, so the level of manufacturing and the chain, the complexities are not trivial in this world. And so what our intention was, as a company, we want to find more miracles. So we want to create more magic in that space, and we certainly want to take those miracles faster to market.
What are the kind of key challenges we're talking about when we think about the pharma supply chain? As I said, I don't know how familiar everyone might be with, the whole chain. What are the key pain points that you're tackling here?
So it's an extended network. The value stream can run anywhere from 12 to 24, sometimes longer months, to supply an individual product. You're talking about hundreds of upstream suppliers. You're talking about connecting with our 40 internal sites, and we deal with over 100 external contract manufacturers as well. So it's a very broad ecosystem, a very broad network that's all got to come together seamlessly to deliver the medicine of choice in the quantity that you need at the quality that patients expect.
So a lot of things you're juggling here. Could you tell us a bit more about how, you mentioned a little bit like AI, digital data, and obviously these technologies can help improve and optimize the supply chain, but could you give us an idea of what kind of technologies we're talking about and how exactly, in a more kind of practical way, AI might be able to...
Yeah, maybe I'll look at it in two directions. So if you look at our ongoing operations within our factories today, so it's how can we use, capture as much information on the manufacturing processes in real time to help us, identify maybe where we have under efficiency and we can improve those efficiencies. But also then, as we look to the future, how can we use the data coming from sensors on our production lines to be more anticipating problems that could emerge unless we take a corrective action. So moving more from reactive to more predictive, and then ultimately adaptive, where the control systems can hopefully intervene and take actions before you have a problem. So you can keep your lines running, you can avoid quality issues, and you can improve both the quality and the efficiency and the timeliness of the manufacturing processes.
Is there a pressure within the industry today to be fast on AI? Is there also an element of staying ahead of competition?
I don't know I think there's a pressure of going fast everywhere nowadays. I don't think you wake up and think I'm going to go slow anymore. But if you go back to our purpose, there's a pressure. If you get to meet patients, and recently we met patients that don't have the treatments they need, or parents of patients, as a dad, it hurts you when you see somebody come and says, hey, my son, my daughter is struggling with something. Surely, we had that a year ago. Somebody said, we had all the leaders of the company in a room, our most senior leaders, and this parent, this dad said, and that kind of struck with me, you are all the most senior people of the company. You must be the brightest of the company. Can't you find a treatment for my son? So there is pressure, absolutely, because we think our purpose is very noble, and so there is pressure in doing that for patients. And you want to do it as fast as possible. And there is, of course, a benefit for our employees and our company when you do it as fast as possible. So you're humbled by the task. The biology is very difficult, and so you get humbled by how complicated human biology is, because even the greatest ideas, you know that 90% of them, unfortunately, in our industries fail. They come as bright ideas that have a scientific foundation, and then, unfortunately, as you go step by step, the validity or the efficacy or the realism settles back in. So there is a pressure to go fast. There is pressure as well, I think, to modernize a company like Sanofi. I like to say Sanofi is a 50-year-old startup, but that people laugh at that because 50-year-old it feels like a very old thing for a startup. We are a 50-year-old startup. We've got to have that mindset. We've got a mindset that we still have to reinvent ourselves every day. And so there is real positive pressure in doing that. And then when you look at the side of artificial intelligence, we are, I think, an incredible time in our life. You get those technological waves. And I feel so privileged that I am at the middle of that technological wave. And not taking advantage of it would be sinful. And so we have pressure to adopt and adapt for it. Some of the things that we're doing today are incredible. What we can do with AI, truly. There's things that we can gain time. We're building things like clinical study reports, which are, once you complete your clinical study, you've got to produce all that documentation to be able to demonstrate how you did your study, the efficacy of your treatment, and then you submit that to the appropriate health authorities like the FDA and others. We're now using generative AI to create a lot of the reports because it will save us weeks. Weeks ahead of a submission means weeks ahead of releasing a treatment for a patient. If we can improve the yield of a drug, what Brendan is always challenged with is, how do I make sure that in a world where you have demand for a certain medicine, how do I produce sufficient? Out of stock is for us is gut wrenching. And so can I improve the yield of a drug even by, and we're talking about 1%, 0.5%, but on thousands of liters, it's a big deal. So there is pressure because there is real value in it, and we don't see it as a gimmick. We truly see it as a positive impact, and we are measuring everything that we do. Each one of our AI initiatives has a measure. That measure will have either a quantity measure in Brendan's world, or a financial measure at times, or educational measure. Can we reach more patients? Can we reach more healthcare providers with that? Because it's important to measure what you do. And we're certainly sold on the fact that digital technology and AI really will change a lot of these things in your world, in the world of patients, in the world of caregivers, and in our industry.
So clearly you're already investing and looking at how analytics and AI might help. What's the accelerator adding to that, or is it like the kind of crystallization of that strategy as well?
Yeah, I guess the accelerator will help us to bring people with the right capabilities. Mm-hmm. The data analytics and the digital mindsets together with people who understand the process and the equipment on which we run the processes, and bring that together in a way that can help us really unlock future opportunities to, again, drive efficiency, drive quality, and drive speed in our operations so that we can better serve the patients.
We wanted to change and empower the company to look at the future, and we created those accelerators. And there, if you want, they were the Trojan horse in many ways to change the culture and change our ways of working. And we started over 3 years ago by creating an accelerator for commercial, where we focused on getting treatment and awareness of treatments to patients and healthcare providers faster. And which meant we recruited talent from outside the industry, from tech, from advertising, from marketing, from all sort of areas. We built overall a team of 200 plus professionals that represent 20 nationalities. So we deliberately made sure that we wanted to represent the world that we all live in as much as possible. And we did it for commercial. We worked on an accelerator for R&D, almost, you think like connecting all the dots. And then Brandon was a big advocate saying, in the world of manufacturing, we could benefit from that level of acceleration and that level of shift.
When we look at our pipeline, as I mentioned, we've got 40 new products that we'll launch by 2030. We're looking at the potential to use digital and AI to accelerate the development pathway coming from R&D in the scale up into manufacturing and then ultimately the supply into the marketplace. And we have an objective to try and reduce those cycle times by at least 12 months. So if we've got a new treatment for an unmet medical condition and you're a patient waiting on that treatment, can't you imagine the benefit and the power that an acceleration of 12 months can have for people who have really no other choices today? So that's our ambition, and we're working very closely with our colleagues in R&D to make sure that their activities in the laboratories are digitally enabled. So we have a program or a system called iLab that we're putting in place to connect all of the instruments that they use to carry out their development activities, capture all of that data, and then as they do their experiments, how do we then translate that into information that can be used in the manufacturing environment to produce those vaccines or medicines at larger scale, more reliably, and that we can do what we call technology transfer much faster, do it right first time, and therefore speed the innovation cycle. In pharmaceuticals, it probably takes 10 to 12 years to develop and commercialize a new product. We have an ambition to try to shrink that quite dramatically, both in the research cycle, but also in the scale up into manufacturing. And if we can take a year out of our cycle times, that has a huge potential benefit for the patients and of course for the company.
Are there any risks to moving fast? If anything, even just kind of reputational risks or people being scared of the deployment of that technology for an industry that is so highly regulated and so obviously impactful on people's lives? How do you balance the need to move fast with the need to still be regulated and not taking any risks, basically?
First of all, I say that not moving at all is the biggest risk. Or moving too slow is a big risk. You're right in saying you should be cautious about how you move and the pace that you move. And so there's a couple of things that we do. One of them is, and Brandon mentioned it, I'll talk about responsible AI in a second, but this concept of have a human in the loop in everything that we do. AI is here to provide recommendations at times, to create outputs that a human will check. And one of the things that we've done with Brandon that I'm super proud of this effort around deviation. When you manufacture, you have moments where things will just be slightly off what you had expected. It could be as simple as the ink color on the box, if you want. That's a deviation compared to what you had said. It had to be that deep Sanofi purple. It's got something, the pigment may be wrong. So we have all those deviations. Historically, those deviations were reviewed by humans with pen and paper, and they will look at those deviations and take a human action on it. Nowadays, through AI, we identify those deviations. We have a tolerance map of those deviations that were set by Brandon's team. And if it's within the tolerance map, the AI approves the deviation, creates documentation, informs the human that this deviation was created, identified, that the action was created. So then the human in the loop comes in. So you, Daphné, would come in and say, here are the 3 deviations that the AI has addressed on your behalf. Almost like, do you want to undo them? Do you want to? And so that's the principle of having a human in the loop with everything you do. And then, much like others, we've been very public early on, and you can find it on our Sanofi.com, our responsible AI approach, which is we want to make sure that we can explain artificial intelligence, that the outcomes can be explained. We want to make sure that it's not a black box as such. That those decisions, those recommendations, the decision that you will make as a human based on recommendations, you can trace them back to the lineage.
Maybe I could just add to that. I mean, safety and quality of the medicines that we produce and the vaccines that we produce is our number 1, 2, and 3 priority. So anything we do using data, digital AI, is in the pursuit of those key priorities. What we believe AI will help us to do is to be faster at understanding our processes, at correcting maybe issues that happen within our processes, and being more complete. If you can imagine a network of 40 sites internally and over 100 contract manufacturers that we work with, systems like AI can allow you to screen data coming from so many different sources to help you find the best place to run your manufacturing process, to assure the quality and the safety of the medicines and the vaccines.
I think increasingly, and particularly with generative AI, even though I do understand it's one technology among many others, there's a lot of skepticism about what the technology can actually do, especially with drug discovery. I think on the supply chain might be a bit different. I think AI has kind of proven that it can do quite a lot on the supply chain. But I guess my question is, do you have an unlimited budget for this, or do you have to be more careful with, planning for what it might do, and how do you elaborate a strategy around a technology that's not 100% proven yet?
So unlimited budget, not yet. Wishful thinking.
I'd like to know how you got it.
Yeah, exactly. It's my secret. It's fair. It's fair to, I think, to have a bit of skepticism in it. And as our boss likes to say, we make bets. We take shots on goals. And so in the discovery side, we do a number of things. One of them is we partner with external companies as well that bring their thought leadership to artificial intelligence. So a company like Akimia that has a very unique approach. They use generative AI, but in a very different way. They don't generate anything from history. They generate things from physics and chemistry. And so every molecule they create is a novel molecule. While some of the models really replicate what the history has done, because generative AI is about indexing all the knowledge that is available to AI. But we also develop partnerships with companies like Biomap, where they bring us models like similar to AlphaFold with better performance with our own data. We partner with companies like Oaking that helps identify biomarkers. So we do a lot of partnership to be able to make sure that we don't fall into the trap of believing only what we think is going to be the approach, but also having disruptors around us. It's important to not be an echo chamber of it in this world of AI, because you don't want to be falling into the trap of drinking too much of your own Kool-Aid. So you're right. The way I see it today, and I go from the fact that there is this fantasy that you press a button and AI is going to create a molecule and we're done. That to me is still a fantasy. But AI is here as a sidekick to the scientist.
I think just to go back to your point of skepticism, I think skepticism is a healthy thing, because I think it challenges the innovations that we're striving for, and it'll ultimately help us to develop more robust solutions using the technology that's available. If we don't have that skepticism, we don't have that constructive challenge, then, as Manuel said, we're kind of drinking our own Kool-Aid. I personally think that our opportunities with AI and with digital and tech, they're limited only by the limits of our imagination, how far we can take it. And if you go back to Silicon Valley 25 years ago, you had guys in a garage with dreams that they turned into code, and that code then became reality. It became reality technology that we all use today that has just helped us to optimize, to speed up everything that we do. If you think of our digital phone technology that we use for almost everything that we do, think about that in the future. And we're trying to project ourselves in the biopharma world into what is the factory of the future in 2035, 2040. What does it look like? And we need to start that thinking today. And then how can we use AI and digital and tech to really accelerate our innovation, accelerate our capability, improve the quality, improve the reliability of the manufacturing processes. We have a concept around lights out factories. Can you imagine the level of control, the level of automation, the level of reliability that you would need to operate a pharmaceutical factory with lights out? That's the concept that we're trying to drive. That's the vision that we're trying to get to. And we're using the accelerator to try to give us some ideas, some concepts that we can really help to launch us into that future state. And the location, back to that, I mean, it's not by accident that we chose Lyon as the location for our M&S accelerator, because it's in the heartland of our vaccines innovation in the Lyon area, with biologics manufacturing sites in Gerland, which is in Lyon, and we have our modulus facility in Neuville, just 20 kilometers away from the accelerator. And that's a best-in-class factory of the future under today's thinking, right? It's got high levels of automation. We've got automated guided vehicles. We've got paperless all through the factory. We've got high levels of digital control of our equipment. We've got high levels of agility. We can manufacture up to 4 different biologics or vaccines in the same facility at the same time. We can switch from one product to another in days or hours versus months or years traditionally. And so it's got all of that capability built into it. It's 34 mini factories in one, basically, that can be connected in any way that you want to make, you know, the vaccine or the biologic of choice. That's today's reality. How do we take that and design what's going to be the reality in 2035, 2040? And that's where hopefully, you know, the skills, the capabilities, the collaboration between the process engineers and the digital scientists, that's going to help us really accelerate our capability into the future. And that's where we want to go as a company, and we're looking for the best talent and the best innovative, creative talent to help us get there.
I wanted to talk a little bit about Europe. So you've mentioned that the accelerator is in Lyon a few times. Sanofi is obviously a European company and quite invested in the European tech ecosystem. You've mentioned a number of partnerships with startups, French startups, European startups. Why is Europe, in your opinion, a good place to build an AI-first pharmaceutical company today?
It's a tough question. And I'll say why it's a tough question, because I think at the moment you look at the technologies coming from really 2 areas, the US and China. The AI evolution is really US driven, and China is fast catching up. And I think Europe has a card to play, but Europe has a wake up as well that is required. Europe has incredible talent, human talent. And that's why us being in Lyon, we feel very comfortable that we can hire, with the purpose of working for a company like ours, we can hire very talented people that want to contribute. But I wish that we had more talented people that would stay in Europe and not export themselves. If you go and look at some of the most incredible companies of now in AI, and look at how many Europeans are behind the models, and you'd be surprised. Except they're not in Europe. So it's a tangent, but it's an important message, because we want to make sure that we have a vibrant region. From a patient need perspective, there's needs in Europe. Proximity for us, our heritage is a European heritage. Sanofi is truly a European heritage with a North American heritage as well, but historically a European heritage. So we believe that, at least I believe that, and we've demonstrated that we can attract great talent. There's great talent in our region. The flexibility of traveling in our region as well has made sure that in Paris, where our first accelerator was, we've hired people of 20 nationalities, and that was very deliberate. And it's amazing. If you go there and you feel it, you truly feel like it's the mini United Nations of Sanofi Digital, if you want. And we're doing the same thing with the R&D accelerator. We're doing the same thing with the manufacturing and supply accelerator. So Europe has a rich talent pool, has a large population. We get patient data in Europe that we can create twins on. So Brandon mentioned twins, but twins of patients are also important for us. We are using more and more what we call real world data, which is historical anonymized patient data, to be able to see where's the unmet need. What are the diseases that have been, if you want, identified but don't have a treatment yet? And that's kind of how you do your miracle searching. And so Europe is, in that respect, is important for us. I think Europe as a region has, as I said, to wake up and becoming a technology savvy and technology empowering region. Our historical manufacturing and engineering and all that prowess that we had to bring it to tech as well. And so I'm a big advocate of Europe, I think, being more innovative in that respect. Maybe we're a little bit too wait and see in this approach. And you mentioned risk a few times. Sure, but with risk comes rewards as well.
And I would say, I mean, we're a European headquartered company, but we're absolutely a global company. And so in this space, I mean, I've got 3 factories. I'm building another one in China. We've got 5 factories in North America. So to me, Leon, the M&S accelerator, it's a mindset. It's not a location. Happens to be in Leon, but it's the mindset that we want in the people that'll work there and participate there to create that future vision of what does the biopharma manufacturing facility of the future look like? How can we speed the innovation from research into and make it into the reality of the doses that patients will benefit from ultimately? How do we do that faster, more reliably, at higher quality, at the most efficient cost that we can? And as I say, that's a mindset. And we'll take skills from wherever we need them to help us achieve that.
Something I hear a lot from startups in Europe is the frustration they have with bigger corporations, European corporations not being as keen to take risks as US corporations would, as keen to partner with startups, invest in startups, acquire startups. I'm curious to know more about your view on the role of Sanofi as a big multinational, as a big European multinational in enabling that European startup ecosystem.
We've done it in a number of ways. One of the ways is Future for Care, which is an ecosystem we created with Generali, with Orange, in Paris, to if you want, an incubator of startups in our world, to help them, to provide them access to data, which sometimes they lack, as well as professional guidance, if you want, from companies like us. So that there's an element of that we're addressing, and we recognize that. We also like to partner with companies that want to work in a model that is a little bit different. I'm not a huge fan of the client-supplier relationship that sometimes you have with companies. You know, I've got a great idea. I'm going to give you a license fee, and this idea you're going to pay for it, and it doesn't co-create things. So we work with companies, and we work with a lot of startups in Europe as well, that are willing to co-create with us. Because sometimes they have a great idea, but our idea is not yet applicable or not fully applicable for us, and can we work around the idea? And with the accelerators and with other areas of the company, we're making more and more room to be able to do that. Because we realize, and I've worked in a startup, so I realized that, and I've worked with big companies at the time, and I felt a little bit of that struggle. It's about how we can really work together. And if you were to come in the accelerator and visit, I would challenge you to identify who's from the startup, who's from Sanofi, or you would see teams that are fully embedded, working on this, solving the same problem with different perspectives, passionately debating it, constructively finding solutions. That's, I think, the best way to do it. And where we've been successful is when both sides have been able to do that. And it has not always been the case, but I think that's the role that we large companies need to play. We need to be able to bring them into the fold, work the way they work, not reduce the speed or the creativity of those startups to make them conform, allow ourselves to be more flexible in it. And I think at Sanofi, we've done that in a number of occasions. And I would suggest you go and speak to the startups that we work with, and I hope they will echo that.